All right, ready to dive back into Westeros.
Always.
This time, we're tackling A Dance with Dragons. Specifically, we'll be zeroing in on Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen, and Tyrion Lannister.
Talk about a trio facing some serious challenges, huh?
No kidding, this is Westeros on the brink, right? War looming, winter coming, and these characters are right in the thick of it.
What's fascinating about this book, though, is how Martin really pushes them.
Pushes them how?
Well, he forces them into these impossible choices, makes them confront the really dark sides of power, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today, how each of them navigates those struggles while also hitting on those big Martin themes.
Power, survival, ambition.
Right, the whole shebang.
And of course, we can't forget how their individual journeys actually tie into the fate of Westeros as a whole.
Okay, so let's start north, shall we? Jon Snow, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Leadership, though. Turns out it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Well, it's a constant balancing act, isn't it? He's got his vows, but then there's this massive threat of the White Walkers. It forces him to make decisions that, well, they kind of challenge the very core of what the Night's Watch is supposed to be.
His decision to let the wildlings through the wall, for example.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. His men, they see that as a complete betrayal. You're bringing your sworn enemies into your home, basically.
And from their perspective, can you blame them?
And not really. But John, he sees the bigger picture. He gets that the real enemy is out there, beyond the wall. And maybe, just maybe, uniting with the wildlings is the only way they all survive. It really makes you think, is he betraying his vows, or is he just changing what it means to be a part of the Night's Watch?
Right, he's basically redefining their entire purpose. And I'm guessing that doesn't make him very popular.
Oh, not at all. He's got resistance from within his own ranks, faces down a mutiny, and you have to wonder, can he even lead these people? They seem so stuck in their ways.
It makes you wonder about leadership in general. Even with the best intentions, if your vision clashes with tradition or deeply held beliefs, you end up alone.
Absolutely. John's story, it really highlights that burden of leadership and how tough it is to balance personal honor against what's best for everyone.
Okay, so let's head south. Daenerys Targaryen. She's fighting tooth and nail to maintain control in Meereen, a city that's, well, let's just say it's steeped in the whole slavery thing.
Hmm.
And they're not exactly thrilled with her attempts at reform.
Well, she's trying to create a just society, which is admirable. But dismantling centuries of tyranny, it's not exactly a walk in the park.
You've got the Sons of the Harpy, this underground resistance group constantly chipping away at her authority.
Right, and it pushes her to make some tough calls, choices that test her compassion, her ideals. It makes you ask, can you dismantle a system like that without using the same tactics that built it? Daenerys' fight for control in Meereen, it's like a microcosm of what any revolutionary faces when they try to create something new.
She's constantly balancing on this tightrope between keeping order and staying true to her principles.
Exactly. And I'd bet a lot of real-world leaders face that same dilemma, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Daenerys' journey in A Dance with Dragons, it really exposes how messy power is and how often you have to compromise to make real change. All right, let's shift gears completely. Tyrion Lannister. He's gone from top dog in King's Landing to a fugitive, accused of killing his own father.
His path takes him through some rough parts of Essos, a far cry from the life of luxury he's used to.
It's like a literal and figurative descent, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. That journey through the Essos underworld mirrors his fall from grace. He loses all his privilege, forced to confront the harsh realities of the world.
But even in exile, he doesn't lose his edge. His wit, his adaptability, those become his most valuable tools.
Right. He has to rely on his cunning and his people skills just to survive run-ins with slavers, pirates, all sorts of shady characters.
I always think about his trip down that river on that rickety pole boat, surrounded by danger. It's like a physical manifestation of everything he's up against.
It really is. And while he's using his wit to navigate those external threats, he's also wrestling with some demons, you know? Questioning his past, facing the consequences of his family's actions.
Makes you think about his cynicism. It's a defense, sure, but is it also stopping him from connecting with people, from finding a place where he belongs?
That's a great point. Tyrion's story, it's about survival, both physically and emotionally. It's proof that even when things are awful, the human spirit can endure.
So we've got Jon wrestling with leadership on the wall, Daenerys fighting for control in Meereen, and Tyrion just trying to make it out alive.
And through these journeys, which seem so different, Martin's weaving this tapestry of power, ambition, and that basic fight for survival in a world that's teetering on the edge of chaos.
So we've been talking about Jon, Daenerys, Tyrion, all dealing with their own stuff, but A Dance with Dragons throws in some other storylines too, right? Adds a whole other layer to this world.
Oh, absolutely. And one that takes us in a totally different direction, like way more mystical and supernatural, is Bran Stark's.
Yeah, Bran's had a rough go of it, to say the least.
Right.
But in this book, things get, well, kind of weird. He ends up beyond the wall, searching for the three-eyed crow.
Right, with Mira and Jojen Reed, remember? Guided by these cryptic dreams and visions, they're searching for this figure who supposedly holds the key to Bran's whole destiny.
And that journey, it all leads to that scene when they finally reach this enormous weirwood tree.
Oh, yeah, and they find a hidden cave underneath it. Such a powerful image, the weirwood being so tied to the old gods of the north, and the cave like this, the secret world of magic and ancient knowledge.
And that's where he meets the three-eyed crow, right?
Yeah.
Who turns out to be Brynden Rivers, this figure shrouded in mystery and history.
Exactly. And what's so cool is how Martin blends the physical and the supernatural. Bran, who's paralyzed, starts to develop his powers as a warg, basically projecting his consciousness into an animal.
So like experiencing the world through their senses.
Yeah, exactly. We see him spending more and more time in the mind of his direwolf, Summer. It's almost like he's transcending his physical limitations.
That's pretty wild.
It really makes you think about identity. If you can inhabit another being, does that blur the lines of who you are? And experiencing the world through, say, a wolf's senses, how does that change your whole perception of reality?
Heavy stuff. And then there's Cold Hands, this creepy figure who guides them through the dangers beyond the wall. He's clearly not, alive in the normal sense, but he's definitely protecting them.
Cold Hands is a perfect example of that ambiguity Martin loves. You're left wondering, what's his deal? Why is he helping them? Is he friend, foe, something in between?
It adds this layer of suspense to Bran's story. You start to question everything you think you know about life and death, the forces at work in this world.
For sure. But while Bran's off in this mystical realm, we're also brought back to the political side of things, specifically Stannis Baratheon's campaign in the north.
Right, Stannis, the self-proclaimed rightful heir. He's gathering support to take on the Lannisters and their hold on power.
Stannis is such a fascinating character, so driven by duty, convinced he's the only one who can fix everything.
But he's also ruthless,
Yeah.
relies on Melisandre, that red priestess, and her kind of freaky magic.
It really makes you think about the lengths people will go to for power. Do the ends justify the means? Stannis' whole storyline digs into that gray area of morality.
And we're still seeing the fallout from the Red Wedding, right? The North is reeling from that.
Oh, yeah. The Freys and Boltons might be in control, but it's a shaky grip. A lot of the northern lords are still loyal to the Starks. They want revenge.
And poor Theon Greyjoy is stuck in the middle of all this. He's been through hell at the hands of Ramsay Bolton.
Talk about a harrowing story. Theon's been stripped of his identity, broken, forced to become Reek, this shell of who he was.
It's brutal. It shows how trauma can destroy a person, leave them vulnerable to manipulation. But even in that state, you see these flashes of his old self, little bits of defiance.
Right. And that glimmer of hope gets even stronger when he runs into Arya Stark, who of course we know is actually Jane Poole, Sansa's friend, forced to play the role for the Boltons.
It's messed up.
Totally. Theon's torn between his fear of Ramsay and this need to protect Jane. He's trying to hold on to some piece of his humanity in this nightmare.
So even in that darkness, there's still some compassion, some empathy.
Absolutely. And while this is all happening in Westeros, there's a whole new level of political intrigue brewing across the Narrow Sea in Essos. This could change everything.
Okay, you've got to tell me more about that.
Well, this is where Martin throws us a curveball. This young guy pops up claiming to be Aegon Targaryen, Rhaegar and Ilya's son, the one everyone thought was murdered during the sack of King's Landing.
Whoa, hold on. That changes the whole game.
Right. If this Aegon is legit, his claim to the Iron Throne is even stronger than Daenerys's, adds a whole new dimension to the fight for Westeros.
Okay, so we've got a potential new king in the mix.
Yeah.
What does Daenerys think about all this?
Well, she's trying to process it, but then another wrench gets thrown in. Her own uncle, Victarion Greyjoy, shows up.
Victarion, the guy known for, being pretty brutal.
That's the one. And he's sailing to Meereen with a whole fleet, plus this captured red priest, Makoro. He says he's there to help Daenerys, but something tells me he's got his own agenda.
So Daenerys is caught between Aegon and Victarion, both vying for her attention, maybe even her dragons. and she's still dealing with the Sons of the Harpy.
It's like a powder keg ready to blow, and you're left wondering how she can handle this. Her dream of taking back the Iron Throne just got a whole lot more complicated.
So much for smooth sailing back to Westeros.
Right, and it all comes back to this theme that runs through A Dance with Dragons. Power is unpredictable. Alliances shift constantly. Ambition rules everything.
Let's recap. Jon's dealing with turmoil within the Night's Watch. Daenerys has challengers to her rule left and right. Tyrion's just trying to survive. Meanwhile, Bran's exploring this world of magic. Stannis is making his move for power. Theon's struggling to reclaim his humanity. And the whole political landscape is in chaos thanks to Aegon and Victarion. It's a lot to keep track of.
It is, but that's what makes Martin so brilliant. He weaves these seemingly separate stories together, pulls us deeper into this world, shows us the complex motivations of these characters, and it all builds up to this ending that leaves you wanting more, needing to know what happens next.
Last time we left Daenerys in a pretty tricky spot, huh? All these powerful figures circling, her dragons becoming harder to control.
It's like everything's about to boil over, and Martin doesn't hold back in showing us the consequences. It's really interesting to see how Daenerys reacts. She's always projected this image of being strong, decisive.
Yeah, the whole breaker of chains thing.
Right, exactly. But the arrival of Aegon, that seems to really rattle her.
Well, yeah, it makes sense though, right? She spent years building this whole narrative of being the rightful heir, the one destined to take back the Iron Throne. And suddenly, here's another Targaryen. It kind of throws a wrench in things.
It definitely challenges her own sense of self. She's not the only contender anymore. She has to consider that maybe her claim isn't as rock solid as she thought.
And then you've got Victarion showing up, this embodiment of the whole Ironborn way. Ruthless, ambitious, hungry for power.
He might pledge loyalty to Daenerys, but it all feels a bit, well, self-serving.
Oh, for sure. He's drawn to her power, but he also underestimates her. Like he sees her as a pawn in his own game.
Totally. And we can't forget Makoro, that red priest who's tagging along with Victarion. He's a wild card.
Another layer of mystery on top of everything else. What's his deal?
Right. Is he pulling Victarion's strings? Or does he have his own agenda entirely? Those visions of his, that connection to the Lord of Light, it adds this ominous feel to Daenerys' story.
It's almost like she's surrounded by these forces she doesn't fully grasp, tangled up in all these schemes and alliances.
Exactly. And it's not just the people around her either. Her dragons are growing more powerful, harder to control. It's like a visual representation of her own internal struggle.
Trying to maintain control, both of herself and everything around her.
Exactly. And it speaks to this bigger theme about power in general, wouldn't you say? How it can be intoxicating, seductive, but also incredibly dangerous.
Oh, yeah. It can slip away in an instant.
And while Daenerys is dealing with all of that, Jon Snow's facing his own test up at the Wall. Remember his decision to let the wildlings through? Well, that's caused some serious division.
Right. Almost led to a full-blown mutiny.
It all comes to a head in this really tense standoff. Jon has to make a choice that could cost him everything.
But it's a defining moment for him as a leader, right? He's got to decide what he truly believes in.
Absolutely. He's putting his own life on the line for the greater good. It shows how much he's grown. He's willing to make the hard calls, even if they're unpopular.
Meanwhile, Tyrion's path is starting to intersect with Daenerys's, albeit in a roundabout way. He gets captured by Jorah Mormont.
Oh, right. Jorah still thinks he can win back Daenerys' favor by bringing her a valuable prisoner.
And Tyrion's the unlucky winner. From hand of the king to a bargaining chip. Talk about a fall from grace.
It really shows you how fickle fortune can be. But even in this situation, Tyrion's sharp as ever. He sees an opportunity, a way to influence Daenerys, maybe use his knowledge to navigate this new world.
It's that resilience, that ability to adapt and survive.
Exactly. And it shows how power can take different forms. Sometimes brains are more valuable than brute force or titles.
So as A Dance with Dragons wraps up, it feels like there's some closure, but also a ton of questions left unanswered.
Oh, yeah. Will Daenerys be able to hold on to power with all these threats? What's going to happen to Jon now that winter is here, and where will Tyrion end up?
It's classic Martin, leaving us hanging on a cliffhanger. But it's more than just wanting to know what happens next. It's the way he makes us care about these characters, makes us root for them, question their choices, and even wonder how we'd handle those same situations.
He's got this way of drawing you in.
A Dance with Dragons is more than just a fantasy story, right? It's like a mirror to our own world. It makes you think about power, ambition, loyalty, the choices we make when things get tough.
So much to unpack.
Well, we've come to the end of our deep dive into A Dance with Dragons. We covered Jon Snow's struggles up north, Daenerys' fight for control in Meereen, Tyrion's journey through the darker side of Essos, and all those new players who are shaking things up.
It's been quite a ride.
We've explored Martin's intricate world, his complex characters, those big themes of power, survival, and ambition. But it doesn't have to end here. This is one part of A Song of Ice and Fire, right? So I encourage everyone to keep reading, keep exploring this world, and see how these characters and their choices stay with you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep those pages turning.